We are
Yeah,
live. It worked. Thank you, Disney. Hello, Rebecca Fishman Lipsey.
so
It's
excited to be
really,
here.
I know, it's so nice to have this personal time with you. I like to let people know how I met my guests. And so the story of how I met you is particularly meaningful to me. I don't remember if it was 2018 or 2019, but I was interviewing stakeholders for a nonprofit, gathering insights about what people knew about their brand, their programming, and all of that. Do you remember that?
That's how we met. I totally forgot how we met. I love it.
That
That's how we met.
that's how we met. And as I asked my questions, we started having other conversation about, the nonprofit ecosystem and the change we want to see in the world. And you invited me in to meet with you and the Radical Partners team.
Yeah.
And I eventually became a mentor and a coach. That's when you were CEO of Radical Partners. I became a mentor and a coach. And I always say that there was a gap for me in both purpose and community before I started engaging with Radical Partners. I mean, I have met and maintained relationships with some fascinating leaders who are working like mad to create change and transformation in their communities and in people's lives. And so I don't know if I've even said this to you before, but I just want to publicly say thank you.
Oh,
Thank
you
you.
were an
It made
amazing,
a
amazing
huge
coach.
difference.
And for me. So thank you to that nonprofit for bringing us
Yeah.
together. I love
Yeah. And now, as president and CEO of the Miami Foundation, you are able to affect change on a larger scale. And I know that that's got to be both deeply fulfilling and kind of hair raising for you. And so, we're going to talk now about how you approach communications in your leadership role. Leaders Talk Communications is all about highlighting how executives, whether in nonprofits or for profits, how they manage communication so that other leaders can learn from them, so that communications folks like me can learn what's in the minds of leaders like you as it relates to communication. So I'm just going to jump in with my first question.
it. Let's do it.
All right. So I know people probably in South Florida have likely heard of the Miami Foundation, but I want to give you an opportunity to share the work that you do fully. So tell us about your work at the Miami Foundation, and then particularly for you as Rebecca Fishman Lipsey, what inspires you most about what you do?
Yeah, cool. So I'll zoom back in case there's folks who either don't know the Miami Foundation or aren't familiar with community foundations. So most major cities across the United States have something like this. It's meant to be a home base for generosity in the community. And so we operate similar to a bank. It's a bank of philanthropy. And we house
Mm.
over 1,000 different foundations underneath our umbrella. And a lot of those are family foundations, families who they could have had a private foundation, but instead it's kind of leaner for them to not have to create that whole entity and run it and staff it, to house their philanthropy under our umbrella. And we operate their grant programs and support their generosity. And then we have like corporations like the Miami Heat. Instead of them having a standalone foundation, we help support their philanthropy. Royal Caribbean, when they want to run a scholarship program, we'll run the scholarship program. And so it's like a epicenter of generosity. There's so much resource coming in and going out. And so we have two parts on our team. One part that's supporting people who want to have an impact with their dollars in the community, to learn what's everybody else doing and what are the needs and how can you be most effective. And then the other is really to have our ear to the ground on what are the big issues in our community, who are all the change makers, what are they doing, what are their visions. If they had $100,000, what could they do? If they had $1 million, what could they do? And to try to help
Mm.
fuel resources in a really strategic and thoughtful way. And I've been doing this since 2020. And so it's basically been a
Yeah.
roller coaster of
Yeah.
crises for our community, for the country, for the world. And so it's been a really interesting landscape to do a role like this. But, to ask for me, like, what do I love most? Like, what fuels me? First of all, it happens to just be a fun and awesome opportunity
Yeah.
to lead in this way and meet the people that I meet and help them do good. Like, it's a beautiful work. But
Yeah.
probably the best part is that I get to spend most of my time with people who are solving, and it's a really
Mm.
nice slice of the universe to find people
Yeah.
who are dedicating their lives to fixing something that matters or creating an opportunity that they believe could be possible. It's just that they're amazing people.
Yeah. And you know every day that you're making an impact, which I just find phenomenal. Like there's never any doubt that, I'm sure could we be doing more? Should we be doing something differently? But ultimately that you are making an impact with your work. I am going to be completely open and honest and say I didn't realize, I never even associated Miami Foundation as community foundation. Like I know what community foundations do. So I
Right.
just learned something. I knew about the One Piece, so I know now how you get your money to support all those folks. So yeah, just total transparency. I had no idea. So I'm so happy that you shared that.
Yeah, now you know more.
Now I know more. The more you know. So talk to me about you. You are communicating. You just mentioned two different audiences that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the different kinds of stakeholders that you engage with whom you have to communicate, and where you feel that you thrive as Rebecca Fishman Lipsey. Where do you thrive in connecting with those audiences?
Yeah. So this is unlike anything that I've led before because the volume is so high. The number of
Mm,
readers and constituents is so high, and it runs the full span. We lead generosity in Miami. There are millions
mm.
of people in this community, and we are helping fuel solutions for everything from like internet access for youth and families during COVID to hurricane recovery and emergency relief to arts organizations, environmental organizations. And so the people who are tuning in to the work that we do, they're each coming for something different, and we're
Yeah,
still the same person communicating,
yeah.
same people, same organization. And so what has blown my mind, our newsletter and our readership, depending on which listserv, if we talk to everybody or just to a slice of them, it's up to 90,000 people. That's
Whoa.
I know, and I've never been in an environment before where when I write a mass email, because you write a mass email and most people who read the email, even if they read it, they don't write back to a mass email. And so you can have the
Yeah.
illusion of thinking I'm speaking into, an echoing chamber and nobody's actually
Boy,
reading. But 90,000 people, and we have a readership of like an open rate of our emails of over 50%. And so when we
that's
send out a
awesome.
communication like that, there are, 45,000, 50,000 people who could be reading the thing that I wrote. And even if they don't write back, I will be somewhere in community and someone will reference the thing that I said or
Mm.
he said or we did. And it constantly surprises me and reminds me I have to be so mindful of what I'm saying and how many places it will be heard that I
Yeah.
didn't. I have to imagine. So what I end up doing, and I imagine you've probably done similar things. When I write a note like that, that's going to go out, I read it and I say, okay, now be this person and read the email again. Okay, now be this audience, read it again.
Oh
Now be
my
this,
gosh.
read it again, and
Yeah.
and what I do, I can't do it in like a Word document. I actually send the email to myself in its format, and I take a
Yeah.
moment and I put myself into the mind of a specific constituent and I read myself from their experience and ask myself, like, how did that land for me? And what felt prickly or confusing, or where did I need more context? And I revise based on multiple audiences at once. And I've never had to do that before in my communications. It's
Oh
sharpened.
my gosh. My mind is blown that I mean, I think that that's wonderful. In the world of communications, we say you should target your message to your different audiences. But when you're writing one piece and you must speak to these different audiences at once, how do you do that effectively? And the fact that you take the time to put yourself, that level of empathy, that you take the time to put yourself in the mind of an audience is just fascinating to me. It's obviously working if you're getting feedback from folks when you're out and about, if people are replying. I'm curious, like I have noticed that in the last, what was it, last year, 2 years, that you have gotten much more active on LinkedIn.
A little
And
bit.
yeah, just a little bit. I've seen you ramp up on LinkedIn, and because I pay attention to Rebecca Fishman Lipsey because I know you and I love you, but I feel that it was very intentional. And your posts are always compelling and thought provoking. and they have a healthy amount of engagement. I suspect that those are supporting your newsletters. People want to know more of what you're going to say. But I'm curious. I'm curious why you made that shift, if
Ooh,
it was intentional,
yeah.
and why LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's so funny. So first of all, just like owning for a second that I grew up with Facebook, you know, and I
Yeah.
know and it has changed as a platform, and I no longer
Yes.
enjoy that space as much. But I feel like
Same.
I grew my social media chops writing content for Facebook. And
Mm,
then as the earth shifted, first of all, audience shifted, audience moved elsewhere, but
yeah.
also it became so saturated with ads and different types of content. I felt like I couldn't share things that had substance there and get the kind of engagement I was looking for. And I began searching for where I would go next.
Yeah.
And there was something about LinkedIn that really spoke to me because the kind of content that I was sharing, I like to share personal things as well. I want to be an actual human with the people that I
Yeah.
interact with, not just like
Yeah.
a work bot. But to engage with people in their highest and best self, and connect with them about ideas, and to lead
Mm.
in ideas and thinking and in connection. And so I've been playing with LinkedIn this year.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
thing,
you've been well played, my friend. You've been playing really well. I
thank
love
you.
it. People at their highest self, because I think LinkedIn is that. Like people are, I think people there's a level of civility on LinkedIn that
Most
they
of the
don't
time.
most
And
of the
I get to
time.
see, when I write a post that gets hundreds or thousands of reactions, you see the full spread of humanity, and you see your own connections, and you also see strangers in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not everyone is always civil, but the message that I'm pushing for, I'm being very specific. I'm trying in this I'm watching division in our
Yes.
community and across the country, and I am very worried about how polarized we are becoming. And so I think a lot about important issues that my community and my network should be engaging in, and how to
Yeah.
speak about them in a way that helps people find their common ground and see something they might not have seen before, and relate to the other parts of our community that they often will write off in solutions. Like, you can solve with people who come from a
Mm.
different place than you. And so part of what's working for me is finding the asset framed way to say a hard thing that will
Yeah.
draw people together.
Yeah, and you're doing it very effectively. And I think that also speaks to the empathetic way even that you are designing your newsletters. Yeah, so I was curious about that because I've seen the intentionality behind your LinkedIn posts, and I appreciate them. Okay, so um, that was wonderful. Tell me, let's switch gears a bit and talk about challenges. Because we all have them as communicators, as business leaders, as people who run organizations. What is one of the biggest communications challenges that you faced as a leader so far at the Miami Foundation, and how did you handle it?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot, but I want to talk about something real with you that I'm pretty sure most of my colleagues are experiencing right now, which is the tension to be liked by everybody versus not saying
Mm,
anything at all. Um, and
mm,
and it's very hard, especially when you have a wide audience.
yeah.
If you say something that has substance in it, there will be people who don't like what you said because it had
Yes.
substance. And if there's opinion in there, if there's perspective in there, and there's so many third rails right now, there's so many issue areas that become divisive or become political really quickly. And so what I watch in moments where actually what we need is for leaders to speak with clarity and engage their audiences related to their values and related to opportunities for their communities. And I see people who are terrified to say the wrong thing,
Yeah.
and so they withdraw from deep content and instead focus in very surface ways, just posting photos of happy things, or photos of the food, photos of the event, photos of people, and that stuff is nice, but it will never get past a certain threshold
Right.
of impact. And so I think the hardest part for me, especially as a people pleaser, someone who wants to be liked, is making a choice to speak about real topics, and knowing
Yeah.
that there will be people who they're not going to agree or like, or are going to wish that I had just stayed away from that.
Yeah,
It's
stayed
going to
away
be
from that and not spoken up, right? It takes so much courage and boldness to speak up, and I think companies, nonprofits, everyone's grappling with these issues, as you say, and I really believe that it all and I'm hearing it in what you're saying, that it all goes back to values and how committed are you to the values that you say your organization stands for, that you as a person stand for, the commitment and the courage to fully lean into those values and to
right.
express them and to walk the talk. Um, can be scary, and people are navigating that so much, and so it is, I believe it is important to speak up. I will even tell you that even that I do the same thing, and it's probably because I'm in this world of communications. Like, there are some things that I'm also sometimes a little tired, and I just don't want to talk about some things,
Right.
you know. But I do think when you have a platform that is so widespread and that has the capacity to impact people's lives, that it's important to do so. But yeah, it can be challenging. How do you manage the well, actually, I see how I want you to tell other folks. I see how you manage some of I will call them either people who I was going to say naysayers, but people who disagree with you. There are some naysayers. Um, how do you manage those? I've heard from some people, I just stay off and don't read the comments, but you don't
No,
do
I read
that.
the
You're
comments.
replying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say two things just to be like fully transparent. So I also recognize that even on my personal platforms, when I speak, even when I'm speaking for myself, and even if I have a little note that says like my comments do not reflect my organization, when you are the CEO of a public entity and
Your
you see it
comments reflect your
personally, my
organization.
comments can, and so if I cause damage in some way, I can cause damage for an entity that I represent, and I have to be
Yeah.
mindful of that. And so there are times where before I engage in a topic, I send my message to a couple of my board members and I
Mm,
say, I'm intending to say this, tell on a Richter scale, you know, what size of an
yeah.
earthquake does this land with you? And is there, and sometimes they'll send back, they'll write back and be like, comfortable with this. What about that line? Would you consider tweaking? Or maybe wait a day on this. And I
Mm,
appreciate it in moments for myself when I'm going to be speaking out, whether it's related to something that might feel political or that might feel divisive or that just might be too pointed or too focused on my take on something when I really need to be focusing on unifying a community. I vet
yeah.
with people,
Yeah.
but to your
Very
question
smart.
about, thank you. I mean, and also just it's important. It's important for me to understand where I stand and that
Do
I
you feel like do you feel that you ultimately make the decision? Like, if you got folks who are like, do you pick and you I believe you have to, so I'm kind of begging kind of
yeah.
answering the question. You will get different points of view from even your board members, but ultimately you as Rebecca Fishman Lipsey have to make the decision.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you do.
Well, I mean, I want to be real with you. The truth is, like, there are consequences for the things that I say. There are
Yes.
consequences. And so I have to be ready every time I post to face consequences for myself and face consequences for my organization if I say something that somehow blows up.
Mm,
And there have been
mhm.
moments where, and I sometimes I'm surprised by the things that blow up. I posted something on LinkedIn, I want to say it was like a half a year ago. And it was like, it was basically a reflection that Miami is stronger because of its immigrants. That was the statement. Miami is stronger because of its immigrants. And it got a huge reaction, especially in my community, which is a community created by immigrants,
Yeah.
multi-generational immigrants, and in large part, there was a lot of like, exhale, thank you for saying that, but there were a few people who just felt like they really needed to say, but legal immigrants only. Like, thank you for sharing that comment here. I'm so glad that you contributed that to this discussion. And it was like, I think these people are baiting me in this moment.
Yeah.
Do
There
I
may be some of that. Yeah.
and but some people who would come in and share false statistics about immigrants do this and we need to be careful about that, and I'd have to ask myself, if I engage here, am I pulling the conversation to a place of negativity? Is that where I
Hmm.
want to be dedicating my resource and my energy and my voice? And then pulling was when you post, your network sees and then it draws the eyes there. And so I have to
Yeah.
ask myself, I want to be engaged and I love engaging with people with diverse ideas. And I'm not fearful of that. I have an audience that feels very differently about lots of things, and I find ways to work with everybody and for
Yeah.
them to work with each other. But I also have to be thoughtful when people are doing things that are meant to spark negativity. Do I use that as a moment to be a teachable moment where I'm going to react and I'm going to share thoughtfully what I think needs to be said here? Or do I deliberately bring the eyeballs elsewhere? And that's a conscious choice.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I guess it depends on the issue and the moment and all of that. Um, what is the most successful vehicle or platform that you've used that we've talked a lot about LinkedIn, and I suspect this is not your most successful, but you're gonna maybe you prove me wrong. But what has been the most successful vehicle or platform that you've used that helps you communicate most effectively with the people who are important to the success of the Miami Foundation?
It's so funny. It's text message.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you why. And I don't mean like mass text message bots that send out the same or like miniature personalized where it says Jennifer, comma, and then the exact same message
Yeah.
sent with
Yeah.
like a machine. I mean the half sentence, typo filled, thinking of you text message that I
Mm,
that I will send to a handful of people in a day. There is nothing mass that I can do that will have the impact of small intimacy that's created by actual human connection with people. And so I still try,
yeah.
and I think through, what did we have? It was like 50,000 people who donated in some way to the Miami Foundation's efforts last year. I cannot make 50,000 personalized text messages, but think about what it's like for you when you engage in an organization and all you get back is a mass email.
Yeah.
What is the
Yeah.
likelihood that you're going to engage again in the future? Do they value you? Is there any human being there who actually knows who you are and cares about you and takes a minute to connect with you? And so
Yeah.
for me, I really try to have actual humanity with people.
Yeah. I remember you saying once that you would devote Thursdays to sending out
How did
personal
you know
messages to
that?
people.
Yes.
I remember that. Yeah, I
I have a block.
listen.
I
Yeah,
have a little
be
block because the thing is, my meeting calendar will get filled up with meetings and follow up to the meetings and preparation for the meetings. I'm telling you, if I could just spend 30 minutes once a week and send out 100, and you can do 100 one-line text messages to people. You just have to be careful
yeah.
because then people respond and you got to keep it going. But I saw this article. It made me think of you. Is an incredibly powerful
Yeah.
just a quick note to people that you know them, you value them. I feel like I'm a personal cheerleader to people in my network. I saw you on that podcast, you crushed it. Congrats on that award. I just, that stuff matters.
It does. It does. And I will tell you, even in the mass, like 50,000 emails, things that make a difference to me are really weird. And I don't know if other people feel this way, but just an actual like written signature of someone's name
Yeah.
shows me that there's a little bit of personalization and thought that went into that message, and of course, the personal notes. That is fascinating to me that it's text messages for you. I love that everyone says something different when I ask them that question, so that's great. I have seen you, as I said, ramp up LinkedIn. We've talked about your challenges on LinkedIn. We've talked about your text messages. We've talked about the great work you do at Miami Foundation. I would like for you now to answer the magic wand question. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you want the world to understand most deeply about you or the Miami Foundation? And you can choose.
Huh. I'll focus on the foundation. People can, everything about me is an open book. Um, you know, so I've been thinking a lot about like community health in Miami
Mm,
and like what it looks like to create a really thriving community in Miami. And one of the things that I have been obsessed with over the last year or two is, there's a lot of studies that say that Miami has really, really low civic health. And what that
Hmm,
means is we have
interesting.
really low voter turnout. We have really low volunteerism. We have really low donation rates, especially in comparison to the wealth that we have here in our community. And it's consistent, and it's year after year that the data comes out and shows we're either the last or the second to last in all of the categories of civic health. And
Where does that data come from? Where do you get that data?
so the National Council on Service, AmeriCorps,
Okay.
produces a report on civic health across the country in major metro areas, and we're consistently last or second to last. They do it every other year, and they're not the only one who
Hmm.
does this study. There was a Knight Foundation study that did something similar and showed us as lowest in civic health. And so I've thought a lot about why that happens, and like how do you
Yeah.
help create a healthier community. And
Hmm.
and my obsession lately has been this. If you in South, what I love about our community, it's like it's part of what I love, and it's part of what is hard here. We speak 128 languages here. We are from all over the world, and it makes the
Yeah.
community magical. It makes us innovative. It's the reason why we are the capital of startups and innovation. It's amazing what it does culturally for us here, but what it also does here, in addition to making it crazy in the driving, because everyone comes from a different driving culture and we all have to find our way on the streets. But
Yeah.
it's true. But
It
the
is.
majority of people who live in Miami, even if they've been here for a while, when you ask them where they're from, they will say they're from somewhere else. And what does it
Hmm.
mean in a community when the majority of people, their strongest allegiance is to somewhere else?
Somewhere. Yeah.
And so my
Yeah.
obsession, like the thing that I am thinking so much about at the foundation, is how do you help people feel like they're from here? That if you've been here for a decade, that when people ask you that you are so proud to be from Miami, to live here, to be building here, you feel on the hook for the future of this place. You feel like you're helping co-create the next chapter of what this community is going to be. It's like an amazing moment in a community's evolution. And I really want everyone who lives here to feel like they are a part of the shaping of this place. Not that they're
Mm.
passing through, not that they happen to land here, but that this is their community. And it's a conscious effort that people have to lock in that way. And so when we say we're focused on being an engine for generosity, it's like that really is a byproduct of people loving where they live.
Hmm.
You
I
love it here, you
agree.
find causes you care about, you get involved in the things you care about, you give back, you volunteer, you vote. That I want this to be something that everybody in Miami feels obsessed with, because it's not something one person turns a tide on. We turn the tide on that. And so
Right.
the one thing I really want, if you're tuning in and you're from South Florida or from Miami, like join me in evangelizing this concept that everybody who lives here should love and be proud of, and like be excited to shape what it is like to live here.
And and I'm as I listen to you, it's a there has to be some unifying thing that I believe people will bring people to say, this is my community and this is why. Like, what is the this that makes this my community? And I don't, I have a number of thoughts about what the answer to that might be, but that unifying thing is what I think creates that sense of community, to create this civically healthy community. And when we figure that out, we will solve lots of. We don't have time to do that today, but I love that that's an obsession for you right now, and it's an
Yeah.
important question. I mean, just in full honesty, I feel the same way. I think about more about where I'm from than the fact that I've been living in South Florida now for 25 years,
Yeah.
and
So at
I
this point, you
and
can
I'm
claim, you're from here.
yeah, and I still say I'm going home when I go to Dallas,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's
that's
interesting.
powerful.
I'm
Why
like,
is
what does
that?
Dallas have on you?
Yeah.
And I think, and so this is why
What
we
does Dallas
created
have on me?
that,
Yeah.
like, you know, so Give Miami Day, which is coming up on
Yeah.
November 20th, and we do it every year. The genesis of that was, how do we create an all call that everybody who lives here feels like, oh, like everybody, everywhere I look, people are giving back. We are a generous place. And
Yeah.
that's what that is about. It's not just that, yes, we want to get donations for every nonprofit, and we're raising a ton of money from so many people. But it's about creating a culture change in a community
Yeah.
where you feel like everyone loves it here.
Yeah. And Maybe the answer is that, I've raised my children here. My children are essentially Floridians. I mean, they used to say to me, Mommy, stop saying you want to move. This is our home. They literally said that to me.
Go kids,
Um,
go.
yeah. And even my daughter, when she comes back, she's worked in internships and she's like, I appreciate so much where I live now that I've gone away. Um, I think maybe the answer lies somewhere in you're here. This is where you're living. This is where you're raising your family. This is where you're building community. This is where you're working. You've got to be locked in to make this the best place that you can make it for the moment that you're living. For now, this is where you are. So anyway, I don't know what the answer is to that. I've talked to you longer than I've talked to anybody, Rebecca. I'm going to let you go now. Thank
This
you
is
so
fun.
much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All
I hope I
right.
get to see you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.